Things sometimes leak before they become official moves, and in Santa Clara, that clock is already sounding loud. The Aiyuk situation may be entering its final stretch, while the 49ers are also watching a possible pass rush swing, a quiet piece in the secondary, and a Kyle Juszczyk quote that changes the whole feel of this offseason. Today is not some cold recap, it is a backstage read. If you track every Niners signal, subscribe to 49 Ears Express right now and come with me. And the first piece of this script is not small, because Brandon Aiyuk has become the kind of story that no longer lives only between the lines. It lives in the contract, the timing, the indirect messages, the silence from the organization, and that feeling of an ending that starts showing up before any official statement arrives. Jason La Canfora reported that the 49ers are expected to release Aiyuk before training camp begins. He even put the window at a little over a month, maybe less. And when a read like that lands after this much smoke, the question inside the fan base is not only whether it happens, it is why this took so long. Because from a backstage view, that relationship already looked cracked for a while. The franchise reportedly revoked guarantees in the contract. Reports around the league kept pointing to frustration with the extension they signed, and Aiyuk, on his side, did not exactly calm anything down when videos and shots started making the rounds. This is not just a wide receiver drama about wanting the ball more anymore. This became an environment issue. And when a team that sees itself as a contender carries something like that for months, it starts paying for it in attention, narrative, and energy. I will say this as someone who defends the 49ers, but I am not covering the sun with my hand. If Santa Clara had already decided this marriage was over, then holding on to Aiyuk this long is tough to defend. Trying to create a trade market made sense on paper, but the whole league can read signals too. If everybody knows a player has no future on the roster, nobody rushes to give up draft capital like they are paying full-strength value. The possible Washington interest, because of Adam Peters' connection to Aiyuk from the draft, works as a storyline, but it feels more like a fresh start path for the player than some rescue plan for the 49ers' value. The relief, if the exit comes, is not cheap joy or revenge. It is clearing the air. It is taking a shadow out of the building before training camp turns every hallway into a microphone. The 49ers need committed receivers, a synced-up offense, and an offseason built around execution, not resentment. Aiyuk had big moments in red and gold. Nobody erases that. But if the door is already locked from the inside, then it is time to stop acting like there is still a negotiation room open. And when one story leaves the building, the next question is always the same. What fills that energy? Because the 49ers cannot just close a messy chapter and act like the offseason is fixed. There is one area of this roster that calls for noise, aggression, a contender's answer: the pass rush. That is where the name Maxx Crosby starts playing with the fan base's imagination. Grant Cohn said in a June 15th video that a source has the 49ers as one of the teams still interested in trading for Crosby. The price being discussed would be heavy: a first-round pick plus a player, or a first and a second. Cohn went even further, saying San Francisco should put both offers on the table and let the Raiders choose. That is aggressive, almost uncomfortable, but it is also exactly the kind of conversation that shows up when a franchise understands its window does not stay open forever. Look at the field, not just the price tag. Crosby had 10 sacks last season, generated 53 pressures, added 12 quarterback hits, 31 hurries, forced a fumble, and stayed heavily involved against the run with 46 solo tackles. And the detail that changes the tone is this: he plays a lot. He is not some edge rusher who only comes in for a pretty third down package. He handles volume, keeps the motor running, bothers offenses snap after snap. On a team that had only 20 sacks in 2025, that is not a luxury. That is a direct answer to a weakness every opponent saw. Of course, there is another side. Crosby is coming back from a torn meniscus, and the Raiders may prefer to wait, get him on the field, show he is healthy, and try to push the market higher closer to the deadline. There is competition too. Philadelphia was mentioned as a possible interested team. So this is not a solo race on an empty track. But if the 49ers really are in that group watching, the internal question gets heavy. How far do you go to put fear back into your defensive line? I would not hand over Michael Williams without shifting in my seat. He is young, he has value, he can be part of the future. But a first and a second for Crosby? That changes the conversation. Picks are promises. Crosby is impact. And when you have Nick Bosa coming back, Michael Williams trying to establish himself, Osa Odigizua arriving inside, and a defense that needs to start dictating games again, the thought of putting Crosby on that board feels like a closed-door meeting, a whiteboard full of options, and serious people asking, are we trying to compete, or are we trying to dominate? The third story does not come in with sirens, and maybe that is why it is one of the more interesting ones for people who like understanding the roster from the inside. Nate Hobbs was not the signing that took over sports bar debates. He was not the headline that lit up your phone. He did not carry the same force as Mike Evans coming into the offense or Osa Odigizua strengthening the defense. But inside a big-time team building, some moves are not made to win June. They are made to prevent panic in November. Hobbs signed a one-year deal worth up to $3.5 million, with $3.1 million fully guaranteed. That part matters. When that kind of guarantee shows up on a short deal, the read is simple. He is not arriving to fight for some random spot at the bottom of the roster. Barring injury, he will be on the team. The real question is where he lands in the secondary. The resume gives this conversation a reason to exist. Hobbs is turning 27, has already played 62 NFL games, 43 of them as a starter, with 308 tackles, 3 interceptions and 21 passes defended. The ugly number is there too, a passer rating allowed of 111.1 in 2025 with Green Bay. But in the 2 years before that, he kept that number under 100. So the read is not guaranteed star, and it is not finished player either. It is an experienced piece trying to find the right fit inside Raheem Morris's defense. And the fit is where the story gets alive. Diamador Lenoir is the number 1 in the room. After that, the board is written in pencil, not permanent marker. Runardo Green needs to answer after a frustrating finish in 2025. Handing him the opposite boundary job without real competition would be too comfortable. Maybe Hobbs steps right into that space. Maybe he becomes the reliable third corner. Maybe he is the veteran who keeps Darrell Luter Jr. from carrying more than he should and prevents Ephesians Prysock from getting thrown into the fire too early. That is the kind of backstage detail that separates a pretty roster from a prepared roster. The faithful can debate it in the comments. Should Hobbs fight to be a starter right away, or is his best role being high-end insurance in a secondary full of questions? To me, this signing speaks less about shine and more about survival. And teams that want to play in January have to survive the Sundays when the original plan breaks. Then Kyle Juszczyk comes out and says something out loud that plenty of people inside Santa Clara probably prefer to keep as fuel. The 49ers are being halfway forgotten, pushed a little behind the curtain, while the Seahawks and Rams get more shine in the NFC West conversation. And Juice does not seem annoyed by it, quite the opposite. He basically embraced the idea of letting the noise happen away from the Niners. In his comments on the Insiders, the message was clear. The roster feels really good about where it stands. He reminded people that the team won 13 games even with everything it had to deal with, and he acknowledged that it is easy for people to forget that when Seattle is coming off a Super Bowl and the Rams had a strong season too, with major additions. But the most revealing part was the tone. He said he loves the squad, that the team has improved, that guys are getting healthy, and he mentioned Mike Evans and Osa Odigizua as names who can make a real impact. That is pure backstage material to me. Not because he gave away some tactical secret, but because he showed the emotional temperature inside the building. The 49ers are not talking like a team searching for an excuse. They are talking like a group that knows it took punches, survived, won a lot of games, reached the divisional round, and now looks at the rest of the division getting the spotlight with a dangerous calm. And dangerous calm is different from comfort. Comfort is thinking the past guarantees something. Dangerous calm is knowing the roster has an argument, knowing names are coming back, knowing the additions make sense, and still letting the league look somewhere else. Sometimes being hunted wears you down. Every game becomes a national test. Every mistake becomes a theory. Every win becomes an obligation. When the focus shifts to the Rams and Seahawks, the 49ers get a rare space, less noise, more internal edge. But the demand cannot disappear. Being underestimated only helps if the team turns it into execution. It cannot become a locker room shirt and die as a speech. If Juszczyk is right, if this group really is in a better place than the public realizes, then the answer has to show up on the field. Against the division. Against contenders. In the games where the narrative tries to say the window is closed. Because the best revenge against being forgotten is not begging for respect. It is forcing everybody to remember. So look at the whole picture. Aiyuk looks close to leaving the center of the drama. Crosby represents the temptation of a truly aggressive defense. Hobbs is the kind of insurance a serious roster needs, and Juszczyk is saying the locker room is fine with being forgotten. This is not a dead offseason. This is Santa Clara reorganizing pressure from every angle. The faithful know it. Talent without focus becomes regret, but talent with hunger becomes a problem for the entire NFC. Hit the like, subscribe to 49 ERS Express, and stay right here, because the Niners still have a lot to reveal before the ball is in the air.